To watch a news day, Nigeria is imbued with millions of hectares of arable land interspersed with substantial tourist and recreational potential. Now, the inability of successive Nigerian governments to take advantage of this goldfield of largely unexplored and unexploited God-given resource remains a matter of concern for those who know the worth. We're now being joined by Keji Giwa, who is a serial entrepreneur and distinguished figure in recreational estate, to have a quick conversation. Good to have you with us, Keji.
Thanks for having me.
Good. So, can you give an assessment of where we are regarding tourism and recreational potentials in Nigeria? Also, delving into your sector as well.
Definitely. I think first we start with data. So, the Nigerian tourism industry generated around $25 billion contributed to the GDP. And we are the fourth largest takers of tourists in Africa. And we have not even begun to tap the full potential of what recreational real estate can do for Nigeria. And what we have done, and it's projected to grow by 6.13% every single year. So if we were to focus on the real estate, recreational real estate part of Nigeria, it could dramatically add a huge amount of revenue to our GDP. And the good news is it's fueled by digitization as a result of Afrobeats. It's fueled by Nigerians in diaspora, which a lot of people think that the Japa syndrome is a bad idea. But years later, it works out to be a good idea because Nigerians still want to come home, and they tend to come home a lot. So there's a huge amount of potential there for Nigeria. And what we've done is we've looked at this and tapped into it. Now, we're talking about international tourism. We're not talking about domestic tourism. Visa restrictions, the cost of getting a visa, the cost of traveling, puts the average Nigerian in a situation where they can't travel out. So they look within. And when you look within, domestic tourism is a huge business.
Indeed.
So when we discovered that, we felt, okay, let us look for where the gap is. Now we have a lot of bars, we have a lot of clubs, we have a lot of restaurants. Focused on the adults. What do we have for children? What do we have for families? And when you look around, it's very little. So that's a huge gap in the market, right? So we thought, okay, how about we focus on a keyword called affordable escapism? With all the hustle and bustle of Nigeria, at the weekends, where do we take our children to? Where do we take our family to?
Good.
And the middle class, high net worth individuals will fly to Dubai, they will fly to Atlantis in Dubai or Disneyland in Paris, for those that can afford it and those that can get a visa. What about the average Nigerian? And that's when we decided, okay, I think it's time to invest in a major gap in the market, which is recreational activities for families. And that's when we decided to build Giwa Gardens Water Park, the largest water park in West Africa, in Lagos as we speak.
Okay, so probably quite some people might be thinking, okay, recreational real estate and the conventional one, you know, what are the major differences here? Fine, we talk about tourism, we talk about, being flexible in terms of entertainment and what have you. So also, how is this going to drive competitiveness? You said we should look inwards. You know, those who can't go outside, as it were. How do you do that? Okay.
Well, I think you had to ask two questions there. The first one was, I think the first one is very much on the difference between recreational estate and the traditional real estate. I think real estate is real estate. So what we do is we classify it. So we have real estate for business, we have real estate for recreational, and we have real estate for residential.
Good.
So, and as technology tends to take precedence, we have real estate for technology in terms of data centers. You know, so and the two work hand in hand. But the major drivers of real estate growth is an even mixed ratio of residential, business, and recreational. What do I mean by that? If you have a huge piece of land, and that huge piece of land has a target audience, population density of high net worth individuals, that drives the value of that property.
Good.
But when you now add business activities in terms of business centers, and you add accessibility and connectivity within proximity, then you now increase the value further. Then when you now add recreational activities for people to take their families to within proximity, that further increases the value. So they're intertwined. They work hand in hand together. So one of the things I tend to encourage a lot of developers is we shouldn't just look to building houses and building houses and building houses. We should look towards also recreational and also business, because when they are, that's where you build a community, that's where you drive growth in that respect. And the second question, if I can remember again.
Driving competitiveness regarding this.
Good. So in terms of driving competitiveness, I think the best thing to do is let's just use my water park as a case study. The water park is based in Shangotedo. You have the largest mall in Lagos, Novoro Mall, right next to it. And that drove, so that mall as a business center, creating jobs, drove a lot of people to start building. Okay? Now you have the water park, which is now bringing tourism, both domestic and international. Now, what would that do? It will create more businesses. There are other needs like a bar, a restaurant, vacational homes. And that will then drive a lot of other entrepreneurs, real estate entrepreneurs, to basically build in that area. And that will drive competition. And when you have a need for something, okay, so demand, when you look at the law of demand and supply, it's basically what you then have is a lot of people showing interest in that area, and a lot of developers jump in there because of the opportunity, and then that way it drives competition.
Very good. One last word in 1 minute. What are the prospects, long-term prospects for this sector, as it were?
Now, when we say sector, do we mean real estate sector, or do we mean recreational?
Recreational.
Sector, or
that's what
our tourism? So,
tourism, recreational.
Good. I think they're 5 and 6. Tourism and real estate is 5 and 6. And what do I mean by that? Peter, who is coming from the US or from the UK to Nigeria to probably come and visit Omo Resort, needs a place to stay. And that resort is sitting on a piece of land, real estate. So when I say tourism and real estate are 5 and 6, that's what I mean by that. Now, when we look at the potential of it, when we look at the opportunities it presents, let's take Lagos State, for example, a state of 22 million people. And if you were to just take 1% of that population, 10% of that population, that's 2 million people. Now, 2 million people spending on an average of 10,000 naira a day.
Very good.
Is a heck of a lot of money.
Indeed.
The question is, where are they able to spend that money? And where are they able to spend that money, not just for themselves, but for their families?
Right, we get the picture there. All right, Keji Giwa, entrepreneur and recreational real estate practitioner, would like to thank you very much for your thoughts on those issues. And just before we go, former England manager Terry Venables has